Good evening, OCPS families. My name is Victoria Tierney. I'm the Senior Administrator for Family and Community Engagement here at Orange County Public Schools. And tonight I am very excited to welcome you because we have a great guest. I absolutely love when we can bring Tara with onto OCPS Virtual Academy because between Rachel and Tara, anything you want to learn about your student with disabilities and what you need to know about their future and transitioning from OCPS into secondary ed, let me tell you, the Valencia Office for Students with Disabilities has you covered. So welcome, Tara Bodden, who is the Assistant Director of Student Disability Services at Valencia College. Tara,
hmm
it's always good to see you, and it's always good to have you with us. How have you been?
I am doing well. This is just a busy time of year for us, but this is taking this opportunity to reach out to upcoming students planning to transition over to Valencia, and I'm just excited to help them get going on that journey.
Well, I think it's really important because I know that I had a son who had a 504 plan, and I know many of my friends who have children with IEPs. And you
Mm-hmm.
go through Orange County Public School System, and those IEPs and the 504 are able to give your child accommodations that are supposed to level the playing field. And for
Mm-hmm.
many of us as parents, we don't realize that while, yes, they're legally protected with that IEP and the 504 accommodations when they're with us in OCPS, they don't necessarily just carry on when you leave OCPS.
Exactly, exactly. Um, I can if you want to just keep chatting or you want me to go ahead
Oh,
and
no, I
start the
definitely want you
presentation.
to share the information. I'm just kind of,
All
just
right. Doing a lead in
conversing,
here.
right, a bit of a lead in just for parents to understand that
hmm
this kind of information is really important because a lot of times we just assume that what
hmm
we have will stay the same. But there
Oh
are
yeah.
some important differences, and it doesn't mean
hmm
that their students aren't still protected, correct?
That exactly right. It's just that we have to kind of educate our students on the difference because there's two different laws that are in place when you're looking at public school versus secondary education. The IDEA is the directing bylaw, so to speak, for public schools, but the ADA is a little bit more general and
Hmm.
what applies to the secondary education setting would actually apply to any government agency or public facility. So we have to explain, kind of show the difference between the two, that we're not as the law isn't as detailed on our side of the house, but you still have those same protections.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited to learn. I always learn, even as many times as we've had the opportunity to get together and to, hear the information. I always feel like I take something new away. So, by all means, please share with our families what they should know in order to make sure that they not only can they advocate for their students, but they can help their students advocate for
Advocate for
themselves.
themselves 100%. If we don't walk away with anything else from this presentation, that is one of the key elements that I'd like to convey to the students and the parents. All right, are we ready to go?
I think we are. Let's take it
All
away.
right. Okay. So we have this lovely photo here of Valencia College, which, I'm so proud to be a part of. I've been with Valencia for about 5 years now, working with the Office for Students with Disabilities. Rachel Schwitters, who is our director, is like her last day with us is actually tomorrow. So in the next month, there will be a hiring panel to find someone to fill those huge shoes that, Rachel has been filling over the last past couple of years. But moving forward, OSD is definitely committed to the fulfillment of education opportunity, autonomy, and full inclusion for students with disabilities at Valencia College. What we do at the Office for Students with Disabilities, we provide equal opportunity education, we promote full inclusion, we help determine what reasonable accommodations are. And to kind of pause here right there with the determination for reasonable accommodation, a lot of our students that come over to us, they have their IEPs, they have their documentation, or even something from the doctor. And a lot of times they think that the IEP kind of transfers directly over to us. So to say that to start, no, we don't. It doesn't just transfer over. It's not like what a college transcript that you can have sent over to the school. It has to, the student has to self-disclose. That's one of the biggest things at the secondary level that kind of differentiates between K through 12 versus what we do. The student they have to let us know what's going on. They have to bring us the documentation so that we can sit down and have that conversation and give them the opportunity to tell us what's worked for them in the past, and kind of tell us their story so that we can help shape or put the accommodations in place so that they can be successful in the secondary classroom.
And I love, Tara, that you say have like tell them your story. Like the
Hmm.
fact is, the more that our students can really sit down with you and share their story and really share with you who they are and the challenges they faced, it really does help you to better tailor those
And
supports, right?
you just said the key word, to tailor the support. We do not have a one size fit all, because there's some students that'll come in and they'll say, "Okay, what's on the list?" So, and it's like, no, back up a little bit. We whenever a student registers with our office, they go through what's called an intake appointment, and that's where we have their documentation. We set aside time for them to, we discuss what the doctor has said, we discuss what, whatever was on the IEP. Um, we talk about, what didn't work in the past. We make suggestions of some things that, maybe they can try and to see maybe, it'll fit better than what, went on before. But we call this an interactive process, and it's also a chance for us to get to know our students. Well, I'm just going to move on down then from which I already kind of got into the support and student self advocacy, and most importantly, to comply with the ADA and the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. All right. Here's the big question. What is a disability? We get it when we post this question to any of our students, some we get a kind of a blank sometimes, because it's like, well, what really qualifies as a disability? So let's answer that question. Here we go. A disability is defined as um a disability that substantially limits one or more major life activities, or limit a major bodily function. So it's kind of broad, which is good, but at the same time, it 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 it, there are parameters there to say that, this isn't something that we're setting up because for a preference. These are legitimate disabilities that have been diagnosed by a physician or medical professional. All right. Okay. Here are the classifications. Um, Autism, AASD, blind and low vision, which my job as the assistant director, I work hand in hand with blind and low vision students and the deaf and hard of hearing. We kind of like divide our we divide our task and our students up that way. Sort of like with the campuses as well. We have campuses that focuses more on the arts, and like the West Campus focus more on health sciences and that kind of thing. So um, we split it up in those ways so that the people who work in those areas, they already kind of know the professors, they kind of know the accommodations that usually have to be put in place, so that kind of like helps the process, it speeds along the process to helping the student acclimate in the classroom. And then there's physical or orthopedic disabilities, psychological, and believe it or not, psychological, emotional. This is like the big piece of the pie. We see more of the psychological, emotional disabilities than all of the others put together. There's specific learning disabilities, speech and language, and traumatic brain injuries. So these are the basic like categories that most of our students fall into when it comes to um, identifying with a disability.
I'm just curious, Tara, when you're talking about the psychological, emotional, are you
hmm
finding that our young people just seem to have like higher levels of anxiety? Is that kind of what?
We are seeing higher levels of anxiety, PTSD,
Wow.
depression. I mean, just I mean, not I mean, like, mm, over just the mild. We're seeing moderate to high levels of depression, and it affects how when it comes to exams, when it comes to trying to get assignments done on time, and that's why it's important. Some people, they think, oh well, it's depression, it's not a disability, it's a condition. But these are things that can most definitely create a barrier in the classroom.
Well, sure. And when you're talking about already feeling anxious or feeling depressed, and now you're
hmm
putting yourself into a situation where you're feeling more pressure because you've got deadlines, you've got expectations, I could definitely see
exactly.
where that would be an important aspect for a young person to look at and to consider.
And I like to put emphasis on that too as well, because we have students who just, they just think, I just feel down, or or I can will myself out of this, and it really doesn't have anything to do with school. It's just that, and so we do have like a list of students who come in that may have not have been diagnosed when they were in high school or earlier on. We have a list of psychologists that can actually they can see at a minimal price. That way they can see them. It's one of them is it's even done virtually. They can do the testing and get the paperwork turned in, and they get the accommodations they need in a short time.
I think that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that you elaborated on that.
Mhm. All right. So, dun dun dun, documentation. Um, I'm doing a comparison here, okay? So y'all, just be a little patient with me. Um, we'll say high school. Let's start with the high school side. Um, in that process, or even the lower grades, because I used to be an elementary teacher. I actually taught first, third, and fourth grade. And one of the toughest grades for me, that I taught, was first, because the students were so new in school. Um, those are the times when parents, most parents haven't, you know, they don't know that this is different, or some of them, have missed a milestone and they're just not aware. So in those lower grades, a lot of times that's when students get identified, so to speak, which it's a challenging grade, but I think it was my favorite grade teaching though. But so it's the responsibility, it lies on the school to try to figure out, okay, why is this student struggling? What can we do to, put everything in place to help the student be successful? Usually there's no expense to the parents or the teachers. I mean, to the parents of the student. And the IEP, there's a whole IEP, there's a team there, everybody comes together, and the whole success package is put together, and the student just, once a year they go back and revisit this, and the process keeps going until they graduate. Then they get to go to college. And college says, "Hey, that's nice. Bring your IEP. We'll take it. We'll take your 504 plan. But guess what? You've got to bring that to us. You've got to let us know that you've had some struggles or there's some barriers in the classroom. If you don't let us know, we don't know. And sadly enough, we see students second, third semester in college, and they're now, on academic suspension. And it's like, I had an IEP when I was in school, and it's like, we'll still take it, but n- a little late, and we probably could have saved a lot of frustration. But we just try to put it out there that the summer after you graduate, we that's our time. We're slow during that time, and it's like, come on in, bring your paperwork in, we'll get you, you know, we'll review your documentation. We'll do that intake appointment and have you set and ready. Even, we do some advising to say, hey, here's some classes you can take. Maybe two classes will be, better for you more so than trying to take, four. Those are the kind of things, the discussions we have once we get the student through the door. Um, so they have to provide the documentation, and the documentation has to show the existence of a disability, saying that okay, it was a traumatic brain injury, it's depression, it's that list that we just saw. Um, the student, not the institution, and that's what I brought up earlier. We don't pay for evaluations. We have a list of folks out there that work with Valencia students and could do the evaluation at a nominal price, but we take the IEP, we take the 504 plan. So before you leave, before the student leaves high school, or even if you have to call back, get a copy. We love for it to be an electronic copy because now that, since the pandemic, we moved everything over to electronic. So we don't really do any paper stuff. But that IEP is not gonna, come over with your high school grades. We're gonna have to get that from you. So that if you don't hold on to anything else I say tonight, make sure to get a copy of your IEP or your 504 plan and get it to us. And we have offices at West Campus, which is off of Kirkman Road, another office in Kissimmee, which is the Osceola campus, and then there's East. And at the end of the PowerPoint presentation, the addresses are there, the phone numbers are there. So you can call, email us, stop by the office. Somebody there is going to help the student get through the process and get registered with our office. All right, moving right along. Speaking of registration, it sounds daunting, but it's not. We have student leaders, we have specialists in each office and a manager, and everyone in our office knows how to walk or get the student through the registration process. It's not a mystery. We want our students to come to us to get the accommodations they need. We want them to be accessible. We want them to be successful. We want to see them walk across that stage. So we're going to do whatever we need to do to help in that process. The process usually takes about 1 to 2 weeks, which is why I say, if you can come in over the summer, even if you have hard copies, we'll scan them in. So we're not going to turn you away just because you have hard copies of your IEP or your 504 or some people, if they kind of fall between the cracks and they've seen if they're regularly seeing a physician, we'll even take a doctor's note as long as the diagnosis is there, and we like to see some form of a recommendation of accommodations, but if it's not there, we're still going to move forward. So that doesn't like stop the show. All right. Any questions, or make sure I'm not going too fast?
So far, I've been monitoring the chat. We don't have any questions,
All
and
right.
you've been very clear and you have
Yeah.
lots of great energy.
I've been doing this, like I said, for about 5 years, and I know this process in and out. And I'm so glad to be able to share this with y'all. One process I see it says there, it has on the bottom that there's a Canvas course. We're in the process of trying to decide if we're gonna continue with the Canvas course. That was something we implemented, thinking that would help educate the students on on the process, how to, navigate through the whole accommodation thing. And it got to be somewhat of a barrier. So we're considering removing it or just giving students access to it after they have registered with us to make the process kind of go a little bit smoother. Because sometimes our students fall off. They see Canvas course and it's like, oh no, what is that? They're not familiar with it. So that is no longer a requirement to move on to the next step. All right. So I talked about the Canvas course, and regardless, everything that's in that Canvas course will be covered during the intake. So even if we did decide to keep it, we make sure to review with the students to make sure, you know, um, things like our handbook, the whole process of making sure you have your accommodations each semester, and I'll get into that. But how to get in touch with us, what to do if you're not getting your accommodations, how to basically go through the process of getting in touch with us so that we can find out what's going on or what the disconnect is. All of those types of things are included in the Canvas course. Okay, the intake meeting, which is one of my favorite parts. Like I said, this is our opportunity. This is the opportunity for the student to advocate for themselves. We do welcome parents, and we have to have permission though, because of FERPA. Um, we can't parents just they can't. We have to say, does your mom or dad have permission to be in on this conversation? And even though it may feel a little pressure, they say yes every time the student does. But whether a student meets with a disability specialist, a manager, even Rachel and I have done intake meetings. This is we reviewed the documentation as a team just to kind of let you know how that goes. Um, it's not just one person looking at the documentation. It's like, okay, yeah, this student looks like a good candidate for this, these accommodations, that accommodations. We review it as a team. And if it's something that we feel like is, something we've never seen, or if it's a unique situation, we meet as a full team, all the campuses to go over that, to brainstorm ideas about accommodations, ways we can assist the students. So we get like a full, 10-man team on if it's something that we think requires that type of attention. And here's the key word I got to point out too: reasonable accommodation. Summer after we have some students that yeah, they're gonna sign up for 18 semester credit hours, and they suffer with anxiety and stress, and it's like 18 credit hours might not be the the best thing here. There's not many things we can do on that hand, and when you're looking at reasonable, and usually we talk our students in this we talk them down to say, hey, let's try 12, and if you're successful at that and you make the grades that you expect, then we can add on another class. But yeah, that's kind of where we go when we come to reasonable. We want to set our students up for success. All right. Okay, accommodations again. We're going to compare, go back and forth with the high school versus college. And I want to kind of put a plug in here with when I say college. Valencia, we actually we're part of Florida Ahead, which is a connection of Florida State and college institutions. And we connect and meet and we discuss things like accommodations, we trends that we're seeing, and things like FSFC, the Florida Civic literacy exam, and because we've recently come up with a course substitution for that. So when we see things like that come up, um, the colleges collaborate. So most of the time it's not just a Valencia thing. We come together to make it like a collaborative Florida thing, and then there's also the nationwide ahead conference where we get to interact and talk with colleges across the nation about issues and trends and things like that. So in high school, of course, the some students I've looked at the IEP. Some have partial days, some have like 25% of the day or whatever, where they're with an ESE teacher, and the IEPs are planned. They're put on a schedule and who needs to be there, and the teacher is aware because usually the teachers are part of the IEP meeting. Okay, all of that goes away with college. Your team is the OSD team. The student team is the OSD team. And the student has to come to us. They have to get us their documentation. And if the student is even struggling with getting their documentation, we try to, help out with that process as well. We don't want the documentation process to turn into a barrier. So we do the best we can to try and work with the students on that as well. The next step is after we've gone through the intake, we have the documentation, we talked about the accommodations, we're ready set for the semester. We have what's called a letter of accommodation. And what this is a letter the students, we send out a link to all of our students, and even during the intake, we send them a link and say, hey, every semester, you're going to have to interact with us and request your letter of accommodation. And it's like, well, what does that mean? I have to go through that intake all over again? No, 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 no. The letter of accommodation is us finding out who your current teachers are, your current classes, so that we can actually take a look at it, because there's sometimes when okay we've discussed accommodations with a student, and now but this student is excellent in writing and English, but really struggles in math. So in this accommodation, we have a student that's like math is not their thing, when they request their letter, their LOA, their letter of accommodation, they can put a note in there with us to us and say, hey, math is not my thing. Can we have a discussion about this math class that I have to take? Because sometimes we have some insight on these instructors work really well with students who suffer with who have dysgraphia, or something that has to do with math. Sometimes we can make that type of recommendation, and or we put um different accommodations in place for that particular situation. We may have to and if we flip it over and just say a student who really struggles with writing, and or just putting together a full paper and those type of things, and maybe they suffer with just really bad anxiety, or it's or depression, and they need a couple days more to get that assignment done. We can put a temporary accommodation in. We get in touch with and we work closely with faculty just to say that we reach out to the faculty and say, hey, you know what? This is a special situation. And if you see that this doesn't alter, the outcome of the course, if we can give this student an extra 48 hours to get their assignment done, can we do that? And they'll say, yes, we can do that, or we'll come up with another accommodation to kind of help that student out. So this LOA is done every semester because each semester is different. Students have a different set of instructors. So we need to have that communication in place to get them ready for that new semester and that new situation.
Well, it really sounds like to me, Tara, that when you talk about how you tailor to every student, this is just another example of how you are actually tailoring the
Hmm.
accommodations to the
Hmm.
student. and the learning context or learning environment in which they find themselves each semester, because it does change more than when they were in high
In high
school or
school,
grade
that's
school.
right.
Yeah,
And I mean, and it may seem like, "Oh, that's a bit much," the IEP is just once a year, but we also don't wanna send them out there in the classroom without, the appropriate accommodations or put them in a situation where, there's a barrier there, and then they end up not doing as well as they could have because we
right.
didn't take the time to assess that because sometimes it's just a combination of classes too that
Right.
that that causes, a situation. So we have some students, they put in their request, and all we do is we get the letter out, we don't see them, we don't hear from them. And then we have students who come in and we sit down every semester and look at those classes. And especially if it's, our visually impaired students, like I have a visually impaired student that's he's going into set crafting and because he wants to go into theater. And so we arranged a meeting with the instructor and the aide ahead of time so that we could work out to make sure there were no OSHA violations. And I mean, we really get in depth when it comes to the student and their need. So I mean, there's a few of us, but we get the we get the job done. And I just want to put that out to as much as I can to the parents and students that I, even though we expect the students to advocate for themselves, but the more information we have from them, the more that we can take out to we work with the deans, we work with the faculty, and they are very respectful of our office. And some of them even when they see that letter, they know exactly what needs to be done, exactly what needs to be put in place because they're also working to become more of a to have a universal classroom so that what works well with one student will work well for all. So yeah, I hope I painted a good picture there um, because that's one of the things that really kind of happens. Or our students will see them at the beginning and then we don't hear from them. And the other side is we won't call them. We send out once they go through the intake, we sign them up for that Canvas course, and we send out like little notices saying, "Hey, registration is coming up." 'Cause our students also get early registration, priority registration. So there's a little kudos for that too with signing up. They get first dibs on the great classes. So we send out a blast notification saying registration's coming out. Hey, it's time to get that the LOA out, your LOA request in. So we do some outreach, but it won't be personal, if that makes sense. All right. And there it is. Priority registration is one of the things. Alternative testing situations. We have nursing students that we prepare accommodations for. We make sure that, if they need to be in a distraction reduced room, maybe uh, we have screen readers for certain tests for, our visually impaired students. And some of our students that even diagnosed with dyslexia actually do better with, screen readers and those type things. Um, we offer alternative format. We do textbooks in Braille when necessary. We have software program called a messenger pigeon, and it's something students can download on their phone, and they can record the lecture, and as soon as the lecture is over, they get a AI transcript of everything that was said in class. So they're not sitting there trying to scramble and write down everything that was said when there's going to be the voice and then there's also the text. And for some of our students that really struggle with note taking, they can submit that recording to our messenger pigeon, the company that runs it, and a live person will actually take those notes and set them up in an organized way for them to study and be able to prepare for their exams.
Wow, that's amazing. I have a son who has just a language processing
Mhm.
deficit.
Mhm.
And this would have been amazing for him because the idea of trying to listen and take notes at the same time, he needed a little extra time just to be processing,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then he would be able to do it. So it's not that he wasn't able to do
To
it,
do it.
he just needed a little bit more time than his peers.
Yeah, and just think when you for people for students who, they learn better auditory, they could actually just tune in and know that, the lecture is going to be written out and they can
Right.
go back and reference that. So I mean, now, because I have access to it, if I go to seminars or wherever, I just turn on that messenger pigeon and I sit and listen, and then I can go back, "Hey, what was said in there that was really great?" And it's right there in the transcript. So it's an amazing tool.
That sounds
And
awesome.
I am also head of the assistive technology team, and they actually have the big conference here in Orlando, and boy, did I see some wonderful things that are happening out there in technology world. And we are leveraging our budget right now to see, to purchase things. And we do that with our students, by the way. If we have a student that they're struggling with something, and we'll say, well, we didn't want to buy 10 of these. We're gonna get just this one, and you're gonna be our tester to see if you like this. And at the end of the semester, come back and let us know if you hated it, what you liked about it. So we do that as well, try to, be at the tip, of the spear with technology, and hope that our students can benefit from that. All right. I got a little too excited about that.
I don't think you can
Oh,
ever be too excited about helping our students. I don't think we can ever get too excited when it comes to really supporting them as they pursue their dreams. So
oh
I
my
say you
gosh.
go for it.
Yes, yes. So one of the things we do see, especially on the IEPs, there'll be an accommodation that says the students need like instructions repeated, or kind of the instructions being done in a way so that it's one-on-one. That is kind of something that kind of it disconnects between college and high school. More of the classes presented, more of the classes, especially if they're online type things, even the mixed mode ones, it's more of a lecture.
Hmm.
I have seen instructors that, especially the online classes, where they use videos and, just different things for the students to interact with. So they won't have that person there to say, step one, step two, and then this is what I want you to do. So that's kind of one of the jumps that students will make going from college to going from the public school to high school. They'll kind of lose that. But we still put it out there to the student. If there's any misunderstanding, or if you're ever unclear, please, 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 even before you reach out to us, use that Canvas email to email your instructor and say, "Hey, I don't understand." We also we have tutors in place. We have online tutors. They can see tutors on campus. So there's lots of places to go. And some of our students just stop by. We have federal work study students in our office. And we have students that come by and they just chat with with our work studies and say, you know what, you had this class before? And then next thing we have a situation where, we have a tutoring session going right there in the office, and they'll come back on a weekly basis. We won't turn anybody away. We don't do that. So there's lots of ways. We ask them to reach out to their classmates. Um, Communication is just an important skill that has to be developed at this level, because of the self advocacy, and to make sure that you're getting what you're getting what you paid for, and that wonderful education that you're getting from Valencia College. And you'll be responsible, for self-monitoring. And like I said, you will have to ask, the student has to ask for additional help. And and they have to ask to speak with the professors. The professors have office hours, so the time is there for them to get the one-on-one. But again, that has to be initiated by the student. And if the student has, they've reached out and there's still a disconnect, that's where we step in and we come and bridge the gap to see, what's missing in this process. The student is still not being successful. Um, we do what we can do to try to massage the situations, and our faculty, they never turn us down. They never let us down. We usually come up with a plan to make it work. And I just love it when a student comes by and he's like, Miss Tara, I made an A. It's like, yeah. you know. So we all celebrate the victories of our students. All right. So more about student responsibility in college. Students, high school, there's just more connect. And, I hadn't been in high school for a very long time. So I'm assuming with some of these things, um, there are limits with what parents can do as far as involvement. Parents aren't allowed to be in the classroom. We have some cases where some of our students, um, they may need like extra medical uh, help or assistance, and that person has to be a paid provider. It can't be a relative that comes into the classroom. And Valencia has to protect itself. That's for insurance purposes. That it's a trained person that's there to assist the student for whatever that need is. And if that's something that is necessary, it's written into their accommodation. And I want to say too that that LOA that we send out to the professors, we only send out what the accommodation is. We don't disclose what the disability is. So the student never has to, unless they feel comfortable with sharing that information with their professor. All we talk is accommodations. We keep that information private. Um Keeping up with homework, that kind of thing, it's all on the student. I mean, we expect our students to be independent, to, monitor themselves. Class time is nowhere near as long as extensive the school day as in public school. Um, Back to the self-advocacy. Um, we ask that if there's something needs to be put into place, even though we've talked about the accommodation, maybe something isn't working out, that especially if the student parent together foresee something to come ahead of the semester, so that we can put those whatever needs to be put in place to give us time to get it put into place. And again, we don't discuss unless we have written consent. And usually our people, we like that if the parent's going to be there, the student's going to be there, so that way the student knows what we have shared with the parent. All right, you create your future. That's right, the student does. Know yourself, know your strengths. This is a big one. I said earlier, one of the kind of pitfalls I see students get into, they come in and they say, okay, I'm going to take 12 semester hours. And it sounds like a regular school day, but for a lot of our students, 12 semester hours it's a lot of work. And then there's also the financial part for some piece for some people, financial aid to get the full disbursement, Pell Grant and those sort of things. You have to have 12 semester hours. But I always say, hey, would you rather cut back, a planned cutback rather than take on more than you can manage, and then, like I said, end up on, academic probation or something, of that sort, and then, you're backpedaling at that point and your GPA is, washed out. So it's better to just, you know, be conservative, I would say, when you're putting together that class schedule. Know your disability. What gets in the way? I mean, I can have two students that are diagnosed with ADHD, and you well know those two students won't they night and day with those two students. So we don't assume with that. We want the student to tell us what does your ADHD look like? What are your struggles? What are your successes? What works for you? So that's the expectation when you're coming in at this level to say, you know what, and take some time to even think about it before this appointment. um, we actually have a form that's part of the registration, and we ask questions about, what did you use, what worked before, what do you think was just, did not work for you, what do you struggle with. That way it'll get the student, thinking about some of these things ahead of time, so it's in writing already, and we can have that discussion when we're talking accommodations. All right. And same thing here. Just trying to brainstorm and create the create and put together accommodations that's going to work best. And I'm going to go back again. I'm going to kind of beat that one in. What worked for last semester may not work next semester. And week one in the class is if it's like, oh my goodness, yes, we're open. Stop by our office. Give us a call. We will reevaluate that entire situation. We'll get in touch with the professor to see if, what they've done in the past to help remove the barrier. So, you know, we're working, we get paid to do this job so that the student ends up, like I said, the goal is to walk across that stage with their degree or their diploma. All right. Advocate, advocate, advocate. And we have some really shy students, and that's what I'm here for. We welcome our students in, and we try to create an environment that feels safe, and um we don't rush through our appointments. We don't rush through the process. The student can always call. We send out after the intake, we send out an email of a summary of everything we talked about. That way, you're like, oh my gosh, we talked about so much, and no, we put together a summary and we send it out, and then at the very end of that, we say, if we missed anything or if you came come up with anything, please call or reply to this email so that we can work on that, or we can get that taken care of. We never close the door. It's an open, interactive process that will be in place until, like I said, graduation day. All right. Vocational rehab and divisional blind services. These are two the great resources. Vocational rehab, there's two sides of the house of that, but the ones that actually, come over and go to college and get their classes paid for, divisional blind services, they are absolutely amazing. The process to register, I'm gonna say it's a little bit tedious, but we've had visually impaired students to get top of the line braillers, software, just embossers that DBS pays for. It is well worth the time and the energy. So, hey, don't just give up on them, but it's a wonderful, wonderful resource. And last but not least, East Campus. That number has been the East Campus number for a very long time and it's not going to change. Someone's always going to answer that email. It's assigned to all of these emails are assigned to multiple people. So it's not going to go a day where, okay, 2 to 3 days go by. I always tell somebody, if you called our office and the phone rang and nobody answered, something's wrong with the phone. Someone's always going to answer that phone, and someone's always going to answer that email. And if, I don't know, for whatever happens, the email didn't go through, the phone call didn't go through, somebody's going to be either at the East Campus or actually the regional campus. The smaller ones, Lake Nona and Winter Park. Um, we kinda, those don't have we don't man those full time, so we try to direct our students either to the Osceola campus or to the West region, which is off of, Kirkman Road, or East Campus, which is off of Econocahatchee Road. We offer appointments via telephone, Zoom, in person, however way you can get in touch with us, we'll set it up so that, we can answer your questions, we can get those accommodations in place. And I do believe, I have talked away my slides.
Well, it was great information, and I do want to thank our families for joining us today. We definitely had quite a few there with us. Um, and I want to make sure that our families know you can always reach out. I put the link to the Office of Students with Disabilities for Valencia
Mhm.
in the chat because it is a wonderful resource. I also want to do a shameless plug for the fact that tomorrow, which is Friday,
Friday.
we are doing our first ever spring college and career fair at Orange Technical College West Campus.
Oh,
Valencia, a
really?
representative from Valencia will be
We'll be
here.
there.
We'll
Alright.
definitely be here, but we have over 85 different organizations. So that includes 2-year, 4-year colleges, universities, trade schools, technical schools, apprenticeship programs. So we're really encouraging
Mhm,
all of our 10th, 11th, and even 12th graders. Please come on out. During the day, we are busing students from every high school between 10 and 1. But
wow.
tomorrow evening, if your student was not able to get on the
Mhm,
bus to come tomorrow from 4:30 to 6:30 tomorrow night at Orange Technical College West Campus, we will
mhm,
have those same organizations. Most of them are staying the full day, and we have a lot of different reps. We'll also be having some college admission panel discussions, one at 4:30, one at 5:30, and we just have a tremendous amount of resources. So this is an ideal opportunity for your young people, your students, to come out and just start looking at what's there for their future. And I am a firm believer that we don't I don't ever want students to say, well, I can't. I always say,
mhm.
well, what can you? Because if we know what you can do, then we can always make sure that we figure out how to bridge what you think you can't do,
Mm,
so that we're constantly building on what you can do. So if
I
you are
love that.
joining us tonight and you have a young person and you want to see what's available to them
It's never too
across.
early.
No, it isn't. Please join us. Come on out, 4:30 to 6:30. You don't have to pre-register. We'll take you at the door. And I'm just so thrilled, Tara, that we had this time tonight because it was a lot of great information. And I really do think that at the end of the day, yes, we have to get our young people to advocate for themselves, but
Mhm,
they have to learn that. And if we, as their caregivers, if we don't know how to help them do that, then
mhm.
we can't sit there and wonder why they're not advocating. So the more that we as parents and caregivers really understand what's available to help our children be successful. And I have grandchildren, so my children are grown, but they're still my children. I still want for them
Want the
everything
best.
they want for themselves. So this was a great night. It was great information. I do thank our families for joining us. If you have any
Thank you all.
questions, please reach out to Tara.
Oh, yes. My name is the first name. When you Google OSD Valencia College, my name is first. Give me a call.
So again, I'm going to thank everyone for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful Friday Eve and a very safe and restful weekend. Take care, OCPS families. We sure do love you.
Bye bye.